Welcome to First Unitarian Society of Minneapolis, the birthplace of congregational humanism. We carry on that tradition of free thought today, dedicated to promoting a free search for truth, meaning, and justice. Our web address is firstunitarian.org. Thank you for joining us.
So there's this moment from my past that rather embarrasses me. Of course, it's one of many, actually, but I'm just going to tell you about this one. I was tutoring some elementary kids in Berkeley, and in that role, I had some playground duties. And one afternoon, as it happens, two young'uns got into a tussle, and they were rolling around on the ground, kind of punching one another. And I yelled at them to stop that. And then I grabbed them up by their jacket collars, and I swung them around to face each other, and I demanded, "Now, say you're sorry." And you can imagine how well that went. We all know that simply saying the words, "I'm sorry," does very little to repair a relationship. It's part of it, for sure. But by itself, it's not nearly enough. Last year, the UUA's common read was On Repentance and Repair, Making Amends in an Unapologetic World. It was written by Rabbi Danya Ruttenberg. In it, she describes a 5-step process for making amends, a process that was introduced into Judaism in the 12th century by philosopher Moses Maimonides. Five steps. 5 steps that can take years or a lifetime. 5 steps that are needed in order to have any hope of healing things when harm has been done. 5 steps that we must take if we are to truly exist in a moral universe. Now, when I originally conceived of a topic for this morning's assembly, I thought it would be all about these 5 steps. Now, since then, I'd like to turn the focus in a slightly different direction, but still, let me give you an overview of Maimonides' suggested process. So step 1 is to name and own the harm that's been done. In order to make amends, we have to actually comprehend the damage we've done, which for those of us who need to believe that we're good people, can be really quite difficult. It's hard to face the possible consequences that may come along with assuming responsibility for harm done, and so we pretty much resist owning up to things. And step 1 is to name and own the harm. Step 2 is to start to change. Step 2 is just a start. This step can take a really long time. It's about learning over time, whenever in a similar situation, to make a different choice, to learn to respond or react differently. And this step is where personal transformation begins, and of course begins again, over and over again. Step 3 is making restitution and accepting consequences. That one's hard. We need to find out what those we've hurt see as fair restitution, what they need, what would help, and then to humbly seek to redress the situation and the relationship. And that's just step 3. Actually, making an apology doesn't come until step 4, which is why just saying "I'm sorry" doesn't work. Ruttenberg says a genuine apology is not aimed at the person who's been hurt, but can only be given. It's only genuine when it's in relationship with them. So it requires having done the first 3 steps, and then some vulnerability and empathetic listening, and to offer sincere regret and sorrow for what it is we've done that was harmful. And step 5 is when we're actually becoming the person we're capable of being. It's when we're a changed person in all the ways that matter. It's a becoming process, so you can see how making amends can take a lifetime. We have to become. As long as we remain human, I expect that there will always be harm and the need for apologies and reparations. And if Rettenberg and Maimonides are right, it seems most of us are not that great at doing this work. We have a lot of learning and practicing to do. And that's okay. Learning and practicing is just part of being human. In fact, it's a beautiful part of being human. It's how we actually engage in our ongoing evolution. And as an aside, one thing that Rettenberg talked about that I found very interesting is that she talks about how many world religions and other seem to focus on apologizing to another being, to a God or to Jesus. Apologizing to them when we've done wrong has made it possible to not do the interpersonal work of making amends. Confessing to your God and then everything's good. Just say you're sorry to God and there's no accountability other than whatever penances come along with that. So no wonder we're not very practiced at this. And further, in this culture, when confessing to God is the normative religious practice, those who don't believe in a God are left even further adrift. We don't know what to do. We don't know how to apologize in ways that actually make amends. Having said all that, I, of course, do not want to denigrate those who need to confess to their God. It's part of their religious practice, and it's not about that. What I'm saying is that that's not maybe enough in our interpersonal world. So, as I say, my focus began to shift as I thought about what to say this morning. Rather than a tutorial on how to make amends, I've been thinking about the stuff we might do to work on ourselves in order to do as little harm as possible in the first place. And I've been wondering about how our ability to consider the consequences of our actions might contribute to building the beloved community. I don't know if this is something you've talked about much here. I haven't been with you that long. Have you talked about the beloved community and what it is? It was the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. who popularized the concept of beloved community. King believed that beloved community is a place where there's no poverty, no militarism, no racism, no materialism. He believed it was a place where trust and love would triumph over fear and hatred. He believed it was not a lofty utopian goal, but it's also not devoid of conflict. And he believed that the beloved community is achievable by people who are committed to it and his practice of nonviolence. So I wonder if for today's purposes we might think of a practice of nonviolence as being a practice in which we do as little harm as possible, where we consider the consequences of how we use our words and our actions in community. It's not that we'll always agree or that there'll be no conflict. Rather, it's about how we move through those disagreements in nonviolent and compassionate ways. Because what's true is that many of us come into groups having been harmed by others in other times and places. We come into groups from situations where amends were never made, and we bring that experience with us. We carry it along into our new relationships, and we respond to others from that place in us of distrust and pain. There's a recent book by Oprah Winfrey and Bruce Perry called What Happened to You? Conversations on Trauma, Resilience, and Healing. It's a great read if you want to look for it somewhere. Its premise is that to understand one another, we need to ask, what happened to you? Not, what's wrong with you? Because what has happened to us is determinative in who we are and what we do today. Recently, Jacob, our media content coordinator, posted a story on our Instagram page. It was a video created by somebody named Dean Spade, who offered some really insightful things about our behavior in groups. Spade posited that because of being harmed in the past, our default is to be on the defense, perhaps in order to legitimize even our past experience. We come into community feeling prejudged. We believe we won't be seen. and that there's no one else like us. And from that place of pain, we criticize the group and we do things to tear it down. We work to disorganize it rather than to work to pull people together. And I suppose this means that if the work of making amends and healing is not done, the injured party, which is all of us some of the time, the injured party can become the one that is destructive and hurtful, perpetuating that system of harm. You know, often we judge others we judge most harshly in others what is really an unmet need of longing in ourselves. And judging others is no way to create change. Judging others does not build the beloved community. It just hurts and excludes each other, and even makes us feel worse about ourselves and more alone. So Spade asks us to self-reflect, to notice tendencies like this in ourselves, to notice if any of this rings true, and if so, to ask ourselves how we might rather help to improve things, or how to try new things with some humility to hopefully decide to practice relationship repair. This makes sense to me because spending our time judging one another or tearing down our communities only takes our focus away from the real work we have to do in the world. It just saps our power. And as you all know, there is so much real work to be done. In her Sunday message to the UUA's General Assembly several years ago, Reverend Nancy MacDonald Ladd spoke of fake fights that waste our time. She said that we need to lean into the real fights of our age, and we cannot do that holy work together unless we are really willing to set aside our own need to win and to reach out our hands and seek the deeper understanding that comes with difference. We need to get past fake fights so that we're able to take on the real fights, fights for justice and dignity, most especially now for those whose very survival is being threatened. We need to stop thinking in the ways that capitalism and consumerism would have us think. Get past those things that would tell us we have to go it alone and that winning is everything. It's not. We need to start listening to voices that tell us to love our neighbor, to do good in the world, and to love this planet. There's a really beautiful piece by Reverend Dr. Rebecca Parker called Choose to Bless the World, which begins, your gifts, whatever you discover them to be, can be used to bless or to curse the world. Our minds, our hearts, our hands, we can use them to feed the hungry or to hoard bread. We can use them to welcome the stranger or to abandon them. We can do the work of justice or withhold love. So what will we choose? And when we do harm, can we call ourselves back into covenant, back into the beloved community? And can we choose to make changes in how we speak and behave with one another? I think it all comes down in the end to being willing to change, to being humble enough to invite transformation into our lives, and to being willing to suspend judgment of others so that they too might lean into their own change. And I want you to know that I'm in this with you. I am just as prone to judgment as anyone else. I just as easily become defensive. I'm working on my own transformation right along with you. We're in this together. I do know that what I want to choose, what I want to guide my actions, is a love that embraces rather than divides, an openness to the truth of others, an ability to put the common good above my own benefit, and to hold the value of beloved community higher than the value of being right. And since I'm not 100% there yet, since I'm not yet at step 5, maybe I'm not even at step 3, I don't know, I need a willingness to change and to be open to seeing things differently. Everything we do has repercussions. All of who we are ripples out throughout the whole of our interconnected web of this community and of all that is. And I want to affirm all the possibilities that lie ahead. I want to affirm the innate goodness of you, of all people, the potential for transformation, and the power of a community that sticks together. Let us not forget who we are and what we stand for. Let us choose one another again and again, and let us begin again and again and again in love. So be it.
Thanks for listening. You can find much more about humanism and what's happening at First Unitarian Society of Minneapolis by visiting our website at firstunitarian.org.